I want to follow up on a couple of lines of questioning. Just specifically, Mr. Secretary, what is the authority that the administration is using to deploy active duty Marines to California neighborhoods? What authority?
Senator, the president has constitutional authority in order to support.
Cite the provision of the Constitution.
I'd have to pull up the specific provision, but our Office of General Counsel, alongside our leadership, has reviewed and ensured in the order that we set out that it's completely constitutional for the president to use federal troops to defend federal law enforcement.
Look, I'd like to know the specific constitutional statutory authority. The president made it clear that he relied on Section 12406 of Title 10 with regard to the National Guard troops. I need to know the authority that he is relying upon in terms of active duty Marines being deployed to California neighborhoods.
Senator,
so you'll follow up with me?
Yes, Senator, but there's plenty of precedent of active duty troops being used to support law enforcement. Historical precedent.
I'm not disputing that. I am just asking you to cite the authority under which the active duty Marines are being deployed to California.
It's in the order, ma'am, but we'll make sure we get it to you as well.
Thank you.
When the senator asked the Secretary of Defense to clarify under what authority the administration had taken such an action, the response was vague and evasive. The Secretary mentioned the President's constitutional authority, but failed to cite the exact provision that permitted such a significant move. He assured the senator that their Office of General Counsel had reviewed the matter and deemed it constitutional. Still, he could not offer the direct statutory or constitutional basis during the hearing. The senator pressed further, asking whether the authority cited for the deployment of National Guard troops under Section 12,406 of Title 10 also applied to the deployment of active duty Marines. The Secretary was unable to confirm this and once again deferred by saying the details would be provided later. While historical precedent was brought up to justify the use of federal troops in domestic situations, precedent alone cannot replace the necessity for legal documentation and statutory adherence. Deploying troops inside U.S. neighborhoods without a clearly defined and immediately available legal basis raises fundamental questions about the boundaries of executive power and civil-military relations. What makes this moment especially critical is that active duty military personnel, unlike the National Guard, are generally restricted from engaging in domestic law enforcement activities under the Posse Comitatus Act. This legal restriction exists to maintain the balance between civilian life and military power, ensuring that the U.S. military is not used as a domestic police force. Any attempt to blur these lines, without firm legal justification, threatens to erode public trust in the government and potentially infringe on civil liberties. The senator's insistence on a direct citation was not mere political posturing. It was a vital demand for accountability. In matters involving the use of armed forces on American soil, vagueness cannot be tolerated. Without clarity, such deployments risk setting dangerous precedents for future administrations, where military involvement in civilian affairs could be justified under similarly vague terms. This is why the senator requested the Secretary to not only follow up, but to provide the written order and the specific legal authority as soon as possible.
Thank you. I want to dovetail on a couple of other comments also with regard to the lack of specific detail in the budget request for the Department of Defense. I take great pride in Wisconsin's contributions to our national defense, and that includes many Wisconsinites who are hard at work building the Constellation-class frigate. There is no mention of frigate procurement, just like Senator Collins noted that there's no mention of destroyer procurement in the budget materials that you provided to this committee. My state makes the frigate. I'd also note that there's no mention of the destroyers, as I said. So really, we are looking at a very incomplete budget request when we are just 4 months out from the beginning of the next fiscal year. Mr. Secretary, this committee takes the appropriations process seriously. I take the hard work of Wisconsin's shipbuilders seriously, and I'd like your commitment to provide this material to the committee expeditiously so we can do our work.
The issue becomes even more alarming when compounded with the omission of destroyer procurement, as also noted by Senator Collins. These omissions suggest either a shift in priorities that has not been communicated effectively or a potentially troubling disregard for transparency in the budget planning process. With only a few months remaining before the next fiscal year, time is critical for Congress to evaluate and authorize funding for essential programs. Without these details, the committee is left in the dark, unable to perform its duties effectively and unable to make informed decisions about how taxpayer money should be allocated to meet national defense needs. The Secretary attempted to address these concerns by describing the budget as a historic investment in shipbuilding, but his justification raised more questions than answers. He acknowledged that the frigate program has faced multiple challenges, including delays, design modifications, and performance issues that have altered the ship's original mission capabilities. While some of these problems may not be entirely the fault of the shipyards, the explanation implies that the department is reevaluating its funding priorities for platforms that have not lived up to expectations. Still, none of this rationale was clearly outlined in the budget materials provided to Congress, making it difficult for legislators to assess the department's strategy or judge whether its funding decisions are sound. This lack of clarity is particularly troubling in a context where strategic military preparedness is essential. Incomplete budget requests undermine the trust between the Department of Defense and congressional oversight committees. Congress relies on detailed, timely information to make informed decisions that not only affect national security, but also impact American jobs, industrial bases, and local economies. Shipbuilding contracts are long-term commitments that involve significant investments in infrastructure, labor, and technology. Sudden shifts or vague explanations can disrupt entire regional economies and put thousands of jobs at risk. The senator demanded a firm commitment from the Secretary to provide the missing details promptly so that the committee could perform its appropriations work responsibly. This insistence highlights the crucial role of transparency in defense spending. National security cannot be maintained on blurred intentions and vague promises. It requires clear, collaborative planning and a respect for the legislative process. Without a complete and detailed budget, the ability of Congress to support and oversee defense initiatives is significantly weakened, potentially compromising both military readiness and economic stability.
Senator, we'll make sure you get all the information, but what I would say is this is a historic investment in shipbuilding, both the defense industrial base and ships. In Wisconsin, and particularly related to the frigate, it's been a program with a lot of problems and a lot of delays and a lot modifications that have led to serious
Navy
challenges.
has called for many modifications to the plan.
I'm not saying that's it's all the fault of the shipyard. There are many ways in which modifications were made that changed an existing design so extensively that it led to a ship that was not even capable of the original mission it was supposed to execute. So our job is to make tough choices on some platforms like that may not be funded the way they were in the past, because we have to make some of those tough choices.
Well, we don't have any of the detail right now of what your plans are with regard to the frigate or the destroyer, and we need that information to do our jobs. Can you get it to me?
We have that information, Senator. We have worked in real time in 4 months to reverse a lot of priorities from the previous administration. We have those details and that information, and we will get it to you.
Well, the committee needs those details, so.
In response, the Secretary leaned on the justification provided by an executive order from the White House, referencing mental health complications tied to gender dysphoria. However, this explanation, while politically aligned with the administration's views, lacked the detailed policy analysis the senator was requesting. The senator was not simply objecting to the policy on ideological grounds. Rather, the question centered on operational impacts. How does discharging experienced and trained individuals affect unit cohesion, morale, skill levels, and military effectiveness? These are essential questions in any institution, but especially in the military, where cohesion and expertise can mean the difference between mission success and failure. The senator also pointed out that recruiting and training new service members is not a cost-free or immediate process. Thousands of transgender individuals who have already gone through the rigorous selection and training process now face separation, leaving behind gaps in capability and institutional knowledge. Replacing them with new recruits will take time, money, and resources. The Department of Defense's lack of a clear, accessible analysis of this impact reflects a concerning absence of strategic planning behind what appears to be a policy driven more by politics than by military necessity. Moreover, the decision raises broader ethical and legal questions. Transgender individuals have served honorably in various roles across the military. To remove them based on gender identity rather than performance or conduct sends a troubling message about inclusivity, equality, and the military's commitment to all who are willing and able to serve. It risks undermining trust and morale, not only among those directly affected, but across the broader ranks of service members who value unity and professionalism over division and ideology. The senator's demand for the official analysis to be submitted to the committee remains unanswered at the time of the hearing. Promises to deliver the information later are insufficient when policies are already being implemented and careers disrupted. The military is a disciplined institution that depends on sound policy rooted in data and strategic objectives, not social bias or incomplete justifications. If the Department of Defense is to maintain credibility and operational effectiveness, it must provide a transparent account of the reasoning behind this decision, including any studies conducted, projected impacts, and plans to mitigate disruptions. Only through such transparency can both Congress and the American public evaluate whether this controversial policy serves the interests of national defense or compromises it under the guise of political alignment.